Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, CHULLIN Samach Tes. We begin 6 lines off the top of the Amud Bayi Rav Chananya. Okay, this connects back to yesterday's discussion regarding a ben pekua. So this is the unborn animal found within the mother animal after the mother animal had experienced shechita. The halacha is that ben pekua, that unborn animal, is mutter, is permitted, even without experiencing its own shechita. So basically the shechita of the mother exempts, it covers anything within itself, including this unborn animal, provided on condition that the animal was within the mother. But if any part of the animal was outside of the mother, that wasn't covered by the shechita. And according to Rav, which was our conclusion yesterday, even if the hand that was stuck out came back in too late, it was stamped as external material, separate from the mother. It's now like any other limb of a live animal, Evar Nachai, which remains aser permanently. Here comes an interesting shaila. Boy Rav Chananya. So this is all based on the pasuk Ubasar basada treifa leitechelu, meat, which is meant to be inside a containment, inside partitions, inside mechitzas. Whether it's a carbon in the Beis Hamikdash, whether it's an ubar, this unborn animal within the mother's confines, if it leaves, it gets disqualified. Now what happens if it's an ubar of a carbon animal, let's say a shlamim, in the Beis Hamikdash, and the hand comes out? So you would say, okay, it's out of the mother's body, it's no longer covered by the shechita. Or you can say, well, it's still within the greater confines of the greater mechitza of the Beis Hamikdash, which is encompassing this carbon, which belongs inside. So the carbon is still within its greater confines. Perhaps it's not considered having left its environment. Interesting shayla. Bay Rav Chananya. Let's say the uber sticks his hand out while the mother animal is in the azar in the Beis Hamikdash. What's the status now? Migu, shall we say, since the havel mechitza l'gabikachim, since the walls of the Beis Hamikdash constitute a confinement, create that enclosure regarding the mother animal, which is a carbon. Perhaps it is considered. It applies to the uber and the hand of the uber as well. It's considered still within its confines, even though it left the mother, but it's still within the greater confines of the Beis Hamikdash. Or you can say, no, regarding the uber, that's not considered an effective mechitza. It's not considered within its partition. The mechitza is uber, because where is the uber meant to be? What's his habitat? What's his environment? The mother. He's out of the mother. He's out. Why are you focusing on a carbon strictly in the Beis Hamikdash? The same exact equation could apply to a kachim kalam, the lower level carbon like a shlamim, which is meant to be consumed in the greater city of Yerushalayim, even out of the Beis Hamikdash. So suppose the shlamim was walking around the streets of Yerushalayim, and the uber's hand came flying out, and then you took the mother back in the Beis Hamikdash, you shechted the carbon. Right? The same exact equation, the same exact factors would apply here. Why are we focusing on an event that transpired specifically in the Beis Hamikdash? Oh, it must be Kachim Kal B'Yushalayim. My time aloi kam me ba'ilai lach. So why don't you have the same question regarding a Kachim Kal in Yerushalayim? Because in that case, you're sure that doesn't really work. The mechitzas uber, because the mechitza of the uber is imayu, is the mother, and once it leaves the mother, it's out. Hachanami here as well. Even in the Beis Hamikdash, mechitzas uber imayu, the uber belongs in the mother, and once it leaves, it's out. Okay, so that puts that matter to rest. Boy Ilfa, comes a new question. Suppose Hoitzi Uber es Yadei, the Uber stuck out his hand, Bain Simon LeSimon, within the Shechita experience, after they shechted the first tube, on the way to the second, in the middle the Uber stuck his hand out. Now, as we know, Shechita accomplishes two things. It's a twofold process. It permits the flesh for consumption. It turns the animal into edible flesh. Number two, it spares it from becoming tamei, from becoming a carcass, right? So in this case, the shechita of the first simon theoretically would accomplish both things regarding the ubar. But since the uber stuck his hand out in the middle, that hand is no longer going to be covered by the shechita, because he sort of aborted the shechita, jumped out in the middle. So permissibility in terms of edibility, that's not applicable to the hand. But what about sparing it from becoming an avela? We learned yesterday that according to the Chachamim, even the hand that left the body of the mother animal can still be spared from the ultimate, tumah of nevela, if in fact it was a shechita done on the mother animal. It downgrades it to tumah, a slight tumah of like a treifa animal that was shechted, which is not an nevela. Does that happen in this case or not? You would say, yeah, why not? I mean, after all, he resumed the shechita and completed it. However, you can say that since the hand popped out in between the two simanim, that sort of disconnects one siman from the other with respect to this arm. Because you see, the first siman that was shechted while the arm was inside was slated to accomplish two things: heter achila, permissibility for consumption, and sparing it from tumah. So you had two checks. Whereas the second siman, once the hand came out, second siman cannot do the first thing. It can no longer permit the arm la'achila. It's not going to be mutar la'achila. But perhaps it can do the second thing. Could accomplish that it's spared from tumas nevela. So that's the question. Can you sort of join together two simanim that have different agendas, different goals, different objectives, different accomplishments, and say, look, at least let them both join together, join forces, and accomplish something spared from tumah? Or shall you say no? The shechita of the first siman is so dissimilar because it was a dual purpose experience as opposed to the second siman, which can't do that. Perhaps you can't combine them and spare the arm from tumas nevela. That's his shayk. Again, boy Ilfa, he had a question. Hoitzi uber es yadai. Bein siman LeSimon mao. He took his hand out between the cutting of the two simanim. Mao, what's the status of that hand regarding tumah? Mi mitzvah of siman rishon siman sheni. Shall we merge the first siman to the second siman, at least with respect to tumah? L'tahari midei nevela, to spare the arm from nevela. Oilai, or perhaps no, you can't do that. Amarava, for sure you could. You see that the first siman will merge with the second siman regarding permitting the mother animal, regarding permitting the rest of the uber that's inside. So you see that they work in tandem. They join forces. They're on the same team. Of course, if the first siman joins with the second siman to mata the whole animal and the uber that's still inside for consumption purposes, don't you think that at least it will work for the arm for sparing it from nevela? Of course, the answer is yes. But Rabbi Yirmiyah comes a new question, number 3 on the page. So you have this ben pekua whose hand is problematic because he stuck his hand out before the shechita. So his hand is asr, but after the shechita of the mother, the rest of the uber is mutar. So he's sort of 90% okay and 10% asr. is there any concern regarding this animal's offspring? What's the status of the offspring? What's the status of the arm of his offspring? Does it mirror the arm of the father? Does it correspond arm to arm? Or do we say no? The whole animal's okay. Hey Chidami, what exactly are we talking about? This, let's call him this 90% ben pekua, mated with another animal, another female, a regular, ordinary animal, not a ben pekua. If that's the case, in my area high, so why dwell on this 90% ben pekua issue? This Beiser Yaitse, who has 10% of himself, which is usher because he left the mother animal, etc. It's a whole complicated equation. Skip that case. Afilu ben pekua da almanami. The same or a very similar concern would apply to a regular, ordinary ben pekua, 100% ben pekua. What if he has offspring? What's his status? Damar b'sharashia, as he tells us, there's a big machlokes whether we reckon with the zera, the seed of the father animal. According to the sheet that we do, Rashi says the shitas chananya, we have to factor in the father's contribution to the offspring. Okay, if that's the case, ben pekua, a regular ben pekua, unborn animal discovered within the mother animal after shechita. Okay, he's 100% munter. But haba al behemim al yosef, he gets involved with another female animal. What happens to havla, to the offspring? He's in limbo. There's no way to eat him. You know why? Rashi explains. Because he's sort of half and half. From his father's side, the father who was a ben pekua, he doesn't need any shechita at all. But from his mother's side, he does. So it's like, he has two simana which are half cut. Halachically, they're like half cut, or as Rashi says, or you can say he has two simanim. One is sort of already shechted, halachically, doesn't need shechita, another one does. So you can't eat him through shechita, because it's not a proper shechita, he doesn't need a proper shechita. You can't eat him without, because part of him does need shechita. He's stuck, inedible. So every ben pekua gets you involved in this type of quagmire. So why discuss our unique ben pekua, the 90% fellow, creating complications? Every ben pekua generates the same complication. Litzricha must be like this. The reason why we're dwelling on our unique, we call them a 90% ben pekua, right? The uber that was found within the mother, but after he had already stuck his hand up. Litzricha must be speaking to Azal ben pekua the kavaseh. He found a shidduch, a matching 90%, let's call her a bas pekua, okay? And now they have offspring. What's the status of that newborn calf? Shall we say, the arm of that newborn calf is usher, just like its parent's arm, because the limbs correspond to each other. Aver, the aver of the father, moiled aver, generates that particular limb. Sorry, what happened was this 90% ben pekua male found a bas pekua who was 100% bas pekua. Okay, let's keep it simple. She was a regular bas pekua discovered within her mother after shechita of the mother. So the father is only 90% ben pekua and the mother is 100% bas pekua. That's the case. Okay, sorry. So now the offspring is really a ben pekua. However, since from his father's side, the arm of the father was usher, so perhaps it affects his arm as well. Aver moiled aver, shall we say, limb generates limb. So he gets rid of the arm, and he can eat the rest of the offspring. Or perhaps, the seed, the contribution, the effect of the father, is distributed throughout the entire offspring. You can't pinpoint and say, well, the arm generated that arm. No. So, whatever percentage, let's say, 10%, Isser that was within the father, taints the entire offspring. So that's the question. Hada Amar. After he posed the question, he responded like this: Pshita de mabal zari, of course. The zera of the father is not really discernible in a specific limb. Rather, it permeates the entire offspring. You know why? A very simple proof. Every blind man should have blind children, because his unhealthy eye would have directly impacted the eyes of his kids, and we know it's not so. Dimkein summa, a blind father, yelit summa, should always have blind children. Vikiteya, yeled kiteya. One without a hand, without a foot, likewise, should give birth to the same type of kid without a foot. Ella peshita de mabal bazari. Oh, so clearly, it's not so. The limbs, the organs don't correspond. It's all permeated throughout the entire entity. And if so, the same with the 90% ben pekua. Rather, the question that was posed was as follows. The previous version is not really much of a question. Rather, the question was as follows. This must be the case. This must be, these must be the factors at hand. Behema ba'al. Lav mikoyach chelev v'dam ka'asya v'sharya. Questions like this. You have this 90% ben pekua. What happens to his offspring? You can't just simply discard of the hand and say, well, hand connected hand. No, you don't do that. There is Isser throughout the entire offspring. However, who says that's a problem? Take a look at every newborn animal. Don't we realize that the mother animal, father animal, has elements of Isser within it? Forbidden fats, blood, that we cannot eat. If that was instrumental in generating his offspring, why doesn't his offspring also become Asr? It was generated partly by Chelev and Dam, which are forbidden matter. Nevertheless, Visharya, the offspring is okay. We ignore the Chelev and Dam, Hachinami, Loishna, perhaps in this case as well. Ignore the fact that the Ben Pekua father had 10% problem. We ignore it. That's one way to look at it. Just like the Chelev and Dam, you can say, no, here it's one too many. Up to 2 issues, not 3. I'm reading by 2 Yisurim, like Chelev and Dam, we find that it's okay. Tlasa, once you go up to a third, the forbidden, arm, that's going too much, that's going too far, we're not going to discount that. Asks the Gemara, how'd you get to number 3? Well, according to whose opinion are we talking? Either Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, Rab Meir holds, unlike the Rabbanan who hold that a Ben Pekua discovered within the mother is mutter regardless of a stage of development. It can be full term, fully developed, unborn. Ubar, he's okay, he's covered by the mother's shchita. Rab Meir disagrees. He says if it's a Ben Tisha, if it's full term, fully developed, it's too developed, it's too far gone, it's its own being, it's not covered by the mother's shchita. So according to Rab Meir, in all these cases that we're talking about, that he found, the Uber inside, stuck his hand out, wouldn't really be relevant. Whether he stuck his hand out or not is irrespective, because either way he needs his own shchita. So this whole idea of yaitse, the hand leaving, is not a factor. He needs his own shchita. Well, either Rab Meir, going to Rab Meir, Isur chelev adam ika. At most you only have chelev adam, as we explained before. Chelev adam of the parent, who ultimately generates his offspring. Isur yaitse leki, you don't have a factor of yaitse of the arm. So again, we're back to 2, not 3. Either Rabbi Yehuda, however, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says, in a fully developed uber within the mother's mutter, so actually the equation switches, it flips around, because he holds that the uber within the mother is so enveloped by the mother's being, he's so not his own entity, he's part of his mother's flesh, including his chelev adam. Chiddush. The chelev and dam of an uber found within the mother of Ben Pekua is mutter. It's not considered like chelev adam. According to Rabbi Yehuda, again, we're not up to 3. We'll never get to 3. Isur yaitzeika. If the arm left the mother, okay, that's one issue. Isur chelev adam leka. There's no isur chelev adam by the ben pekua, the snan or the sani. We have a brayso gid anash neigel b'shlil. The isur gid anash applies to the shlil, the unborn as well. V'chel by asur. Likewise, as chelev is asur. The Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Daimer ein neig b'shlil v'chel by mut. There's no gid anash, no chelev issues. So you'll now have 3 issues in one animal. It's either or. So what's your question? So back to our situation, we have a ben pekua who's only a 90% ben pekua because his arm became asa due to exiting the mother prior to shchita. The question was, what happens to his offspring? Ella says the Gemara, you got to say it like this. Our conclusion is kol mikoyach le'amrinan. The shari. We don't say, well, since the offspring was born from a father who has some sort of issue, the child becomes asur as well. No, we don't say it. B'shari it's mutter. Definitely mutter. So what is Rabbi Yirmiyah's question regarding the 90% ben pekua? His question was like this. We're not speaking about offspring. The offspring of the ben pekua is a new entity. He doesn't reckon with his father's issues. Rather, the question is regarding the chalav, the milk off this ben pekua, let's say, calf. Can one drink its milk? Why would you say yes? Why would you say no? Look, chalav de alma, regular ordinary milk coming from a regular healthy cow. If you think of it, isn't there a problem of iver menachai? I mean, it's material coming from a live animal. Nevertheless, v'shari, it's mutar. You can drink milk. By the way, you know how we know? The Gemara Becheres learns from the pasuk that praises Eretz Yisrael as Eretz Zavas Chalav Advash. Right? Milk flowing with milk and honey. Apparently milk is permissible, otherwise nothing to be proud about, right? So in any case, despite it having an element resembling Evi Menachai, it's okay. Perhaps here as well, by the Ben Pekua's milk, it's okay. Despite the fact that Ben Pekua has issues, his arm is asur, it shouldn't affect his milk. Or you can really say there's a difference between the 2 cases. You see, by regular a cow produces milk, what would be the isser? Ever menachai on the cow. But the cow's ever menachai isser is merely temporary. It's potentially removable through shchita. Some islet account you can fix it, you can remedy, you can solve it. L'isuri the isser ever menachai on a regular animal be shchita through shchita. Hachabar of hibat ben pekua. The 90% ben pekua, there's no resolution to his issue. It's a permanent stamp on that hand. You can't fix it up. Through shchita, so perhaps it's a more pronounced isser, more permanent, and would disqualify his milk. Take it, we leave this unresolved. And Rashi explains that Rabbi Yirmiyah, if you look back at the Lashon, he says, shall we be concerned about the zera of the 90% of Pekua? He says, so if we're talking about milk, why is it called zara? He says, typically, a cow would only produce milk once it gives birth, so that's why he related it to Zarai, to his offspring, but we're not talking necessarily about offspring, we're talking about milk and its status. Okay, so we had, at this point, we had 3 questions. One posed by Rav Chananya regarding the Uber stuck his hand out of a carbon mother animal, while still in the confines of the Beis HaMikdash, or shall we say it's still considered inside, or no? It's out of the mother. Conclusion was it's out of the mother. Ilfa had a question. Can we combine the shchita of the first siman, which was a fully effective shchita, together with the second siman, despite the Uber having stuck his hand out in the middle, and no longer benefiting completely from the first shchita? And the answer is yes, you can combine them. At least it's a spirit from nevela status. Rabbi Yirmiyah had a question regarding the milk of this 90% of Pekua, and we left it as a teku. Okay, now back to the basic halacha in the Mishnah. The uber within the mother animal that experienced shchita is considered a ben pekua, it's mutter. And how do we know this to be so? What's the source of a ben pekua? The chsiv of a pasuk v'chol behema. Mafra says parsa, and the pasuk continues v'shesaz shesa. Shtei process malas gera ba behema. So it's extra. It's an extra word. It's repetitious. We connect. We join the first word behema with ba behema later on. We say behema ba behema, a behema within another animal. Oh, that's our friend l'rabbi sablad. That covers the ben pekua and permits him through the mother's shechita. Asks the Gemara, okay, so you're related to the ben pekua, to the unborn, to the uber as a behema. The Torah is labeling it behema. If that's the case, if it has the status of behema, yamiru boy. Why can't we do tmura with it? Alam tanam, we have a mishnah, aim namiru, and you can't do tmura. Tmura is where you take an existing carbon and you take a new animal, a CHULLIN animal, place them side by side and say, well, I want to make an exchange or a transfer or an extension from the carbon onto this new one. You can only do it on a full animal. You're not supposed to do it, by the way, it's an Isser, but when the Mishnah says you can't, it means to say it won't work. It won't work unless the newly introduced animal is a full animal, not an ubar. Because it's not a behema. Allah matanam, we have a Mishnah, ein amir, and you can't do tmura loy evorim. Be'ubarim. So you have an uber of a behema of kachim, and you put another animal, and you say the leg of this new animal should become the tmura of that. You can't do that. Or vice versa, loy evorim, be'evorim. You want an uber to become the tmura of an aver kachim. Or you have a shalom, a full carbon right here, and you say, I want the aver of this new animal to become or the uber of the animal. You can't do that. Or vice versa, you can't take a full animal and say, this should be a tmura of those limbs or those ubarim. You can't do that. Why? Because in talking about a tmura, Torah calls it a behema. Vim yamar behema behema. It's not a behema, but according to you it is. Even an uber is labeled as behema. You're right. We're going to backtrack from that source and find another one to permit ben pekua. Ela makro. Pasuk says, "V'chol behema." Let's take a look at that pasuk again, which begins with the word v'chol. V'chol behema. Everything. It's all inclusive. Anything inside is mutar through the shechita of the mother. V'chol behema. L'rambah is to include as avlad the uber. Yoch, if that's the case, afilu choytach chol nakloyes. Nami. If anything within the mother animal is covered, so why does the Mishnah say if one detaches a spleen, kidneys of the mother animal, and leaves it in there during shechita, it's not covered by the shechita. We have a Mishnah, it doesn't work. Detaches something from the uber in the mother's stomach during, and then it experiences shechita. It's all covered by the mother's shechita, but not if something was detached from the mother body herself. And the question is why? V'chol behema should cover anything within the mother animal during shechita. The answer is Amar Kro. The same pasuk says, it ends with the words Oisa techelu. Oisa is limiting, only it. When it's intact, the mother animal when it's intact. Oisa means shlemo, intact. V'lichaser, not missing. Ask the Gemara. Okay, another question. So you're telling me anything within the mother animal is mutar ba'achila? If that's the case, imagine he shechts a mother animal, and he finds within it not something that appears like a calf, looks like a pigeon, totally different appearance. Tishtari, it should be okay. V'chal behema means everything in the behema, irrespective of its appearance. However, Rabbi Yechon teaches us it's not so. He does shechita on the behema, or matzah discovers a yain. Also, you can't eat it. And the question is why? Return Talmud base. The answer is ba'ina process for lack. The pasuk, that same pasuk mentions shtei process, right? It has the split hooves, malas gera, and this strange-looking entity does not feature those qualities. If that's the case, that the uber has to have split hooves to be impacted by the mother's shechita, what about a kalot? It's an animal that appears to be of the kosher variety, it looks like a calf. The issue is that his hooves are not split, they're merged together. But made para in the innards of the cow mother, who experienced shechita litzar, it should be aser. He doesn't qualify, it's not shtei process. Answer is hatana. We we find a brisa that was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, Bir Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Some learn this to mean in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Okay, in any case, this is the brisa. This is the drasha. Parsa b'behema teichelu. This very same pasuk that we're dwelling on actually also says parsa, a single hoof, a merged hoof, not a split hoof. Parsa b'behema teichelu. You can eat it as long as you found it in the animal, in the mother animal. Yes, if it was born, it separates, it asserts its own identity. Even a kulot coming from a parah would be also according to some shittas. But in this case, it's okay because he found it within the mother. It doesn't have its own identity. It's tafel, it's batal. It becomes part of the mother's entity. And therefore, he doesn't need to have his own full-fledged kosher signs. But if he looks like a yaina, that's a whole different story. And he's so dissimilar. He's not going to be covered. Okay, so the question was source for ben pekua. We had one attempt, which was behema ba behema. We had a question on that. What was the question? Well, if you're calling the uber as behema, considering behema, so why can't you do tamura with it? Tamura requires behema. This is a behema. So we left that sort of hanging and we shifted to a different drasha. Rav Simi bar Ashi Omar, let's backpedal to that first drasha. We'll go back to the first pasuk. From behema ba behema. As per your question, what about the Mishnah which says ein memir and you can't do tamura with it? Why not if it's a behema? The answer is you're right, but that Mishnah is going like Rabbi Shimon, who has his own unique approach to tamura. He says we compare, we link, we connect tamura to the halacha of maser behema, a tenth animal that you have to walk through the gate there. The pasuk, we have an extra pasuk, it connects it to, basically, it follows very similar parameters. Hamani Rabbi Shimon, the makashi connects, he equates the halacha of tamura to the halacha of lamaser. And just like my maser, just like my maser, ein noyeg, maser behema requires the animal to walk through the gate. Ein noyeg be'ivarim, you can't do maser behema on a limb, u'ubarim unborn, af tamura, likewise by tamura, ein noyeg will not apply, be'ivarim u'ubarim. That's the answer. Okay, so we're sort of going to get a little sidetracked on what tamra. So why would we suggest? How would we know? What's the basis to assume that that Mishnah there is following this unique sheet of Reb Shimon, which solves our issue? But how do we know? It's not, because take a look at that continuation of that Mishnah. So the first shita, let's call it X. We don't know who he is. Maybe it is Reb Shimon, maybe it's not. Let's try to explore. So the Mishnah continues with an opposing view. Rabbi Yasi, what's the issue with making tamura on a ubar, on a aver? Take a look at the regular, conventional hegdish, designated an animal as a korban. Ha'imar ragla shazu oila. Person declares the leg of this animal should be an oila. Ragla shazu oila. Guess what happens? It expands, it spreads throughout the entire behema, and all becomes designated as an oila. Kul oila afkasha oimar. Likewise by tamura, if he designates regel shazu tachasu, this leg of this new animal should become a tamura for the other korban. Take a tamura tachtel. You know what? The whole animal becomes tamura. That is Rabbi Yasi's position, and he's responding to somebody. We have to investigate who is that somebody that he was responding to. We're going to try to see if it's Rabbi Shimon. Who's he responding to? Who's he arguing with? He learned with Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yasi's argument is based on a premise, on a given. Just like by regular hegdish, you can trigger it by being magdish just a foot, which automatically spreads. Same thing by tamura. So he's making that assumption. Who agrees with that? Ilema l'Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. He's responding to Rabbi Yehuda, assuming that they agree with it. Guess what? They totally disagree. It's a non-starter. Mi islu haisvar. Do they then adopt this approach regarding partial turning into full? Latani Rabbi Brisa, where they disagree. So perhaps if a person designates a leg of an animal as an oila, you think teikul oila, the whole animal becomes an oila. But no, kol asher yita mimenu l'Hashem yeh kodesh. Anything that you designate from partial, it stays partial. Mimenu kodesh, l'kuloi kodesh. Only part of it remains kodesh. It doesn't spread. It stays limited to the foot. What do we do with it? That's a good question. It's like sort of in limbo now. Yochel teitze l'chulin, could just send it back to the farm as a regular animal. No, tamalei mariyah. The pasuk says yeh bav yaseh. It stays in its status, so the leg is kaddish, but the whole animal is not. What do we do? Solution is haketzad. What's the way forward? You find a fellow who needs a carbon oil, you sell it to him with the mechul, and you keep the money. Chutz midmei ever shabbat, except you can't keep the value of the leg. That's kaddish. Okay. In any case, divrei, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. So clearly, they hold that it doesn't spread to the whole animal. It's only Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, they say that it spreads. How do we know that if he designates the leg, the whole thing becomes a carbon? Says, cool, the whole thing becomes designated. So again, Rabbi Yossi, who is basing his argument on this premise, who is he talking to? Laman, Ilu Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, is going speaking to them. Mi islu haisvara, they don't hold of this halacha. So how could he be speaking to them as though it's an assumption, as though it's just a given? Oh, elo lav Rabbi Shimon. The only other option appears to be Rabbi Shimon, who, as we just mentioned, agrees with Rabbi Yossi regarding regular heglish. Comes Rabbi Yossi and says, you know what? Just as you agree with me, regarding regular hegdish, you designate the leg, the whole thing becomes hegdish. So why don't you agree with me regarding tmura as well? Why are you saying you can't make tmura on a leg? Fine, you can't make it on the leg, but let it spread, let it work. That proves out our point. That's what we were looking for, to prove that in fact that Mishnah, which doesn't allow tmura on the leg, is Reb Shimon speaking. And the reason was because he connected to Maser Behema, which needs a full live, animal. And that explains why you can't do it in the Uber. But according to, the prevailing opinion, you would be able to make Tmura on an Uber, because in fact it's called Behema, as per the Pasuk, Behema ba Behema, which is the source to be Mater the Ben Pekua, clearly labeling the unborn as a Behema. Hold this, not so fast. No. Rabbi Yossi. Talmud Bavli. Perhaps he's not responding to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon is not the Tanakama, is not the X that we were looking for. In fact, Rabbi Yossi is speaking to Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda. As per your wonderment, why would he be giving a presentation which is based on a premise that they don't adhere to? The answer is Talmud Bavli. He's relating to his own personal opinion. He's saying, look, I know you don't agree with me that you can make hegdish on a leg, but I do. My position is that you could. And just like you can do it by the original hegdish, by saying the leg is kaddish, the whole thing becomes kaddish, my position is that by tmura as well. Once the leg is designated as tmura, it doesn't stop there. It's not limited to the leg. The whole animal becomes kaddish. So it isn't necessarily Reb Shimon, and there goes our proof. Okay, at the end of the day, a ben pekua is mutter either because of behema ba behema or because of v'chol behema. Continues the Mishnah. Now we shift gears slightly to an animal who's giving birth for the first time. Mivakera is like bachar. It's her first birth. And if it's a kosher animal, it's given to the kohen, treats it like a carbon, and has kedusha. If it dies, he has to bury it, right? The question is, at what point in the birthing process is it considered born? So we already have a clue from yesterday. The head comes out. That's the primary organ. It's born. Or most of the animal comes out. Roiv, it's also considered born. So we have this animal who is experiencing labor pains, it's her first birth. So if the farmer decides to stick his hand in, chop away from the unborn, limb by limb, and throw it to the dogs, there's no issue of kedusha. It's not yet a bechor. It wasn't born. The kedusha only arrives upon exiting, upon birth. When he is paiter, when he passes through the rechem, the womb. But Yatsa Rubai, once he notices that most, 51%, had already come out, too late, Hareze you cover. Now if there's any issue, if it dies, you have to bury it. And either way, in the first or second case, the animal is no longer liable to the obligations of bechor, because whatever comes later is no longer the first out of the womb. Interesting, talking about kvura of bechor reminds me of this wonderful, amazing, startling story that happened in Eretz Yisrael. It was related by Reb Yitzchak Zilberstein Shlita in his Sefer Baruch Nafshi, a wonderful story. I'll just say it briefly. Basically, there was a group of Talmud Chachamim who were trying to be mezakas, a rabbin, to help the farmers and irreligious farmers throughout Eretz Yisrael, to make them aware of the the whole concept of bechor and the kedusha of the bechor, and the way to address it nowadays is to sell. They would make a contract with a guy and sell him the heir. If you know that animal about to birth for the first time, so they would sell the heir, just the heir to the guy, and that absolves it from a guy is not obligated in bechor. So he'd go around to the farms, to the kibbutzim, and have them sign this paper. It so happens that there was one farmer that this Rav was dealing with, and he hadn't really gotten around to make that agreement in writing. Next time he came back to him, he says, "It's too late. The animal already gave birth." And he says, "Okay, but what do you do with it? It's kaddish. I mean, now that it was owned by a yid, it's a real bechor." He said, "It died." He says, "You have to bury it." He says, "What do you mean bury? Burying, that's for humans. I never heard of such a thing. A farmer for 30 years. I never heard of burying animals. Nah, we throw it over the gate, over the fence, out of the kibbutz, into the ravine, into the valley, and the animals come, the vultures come, and they know what to do with it." He was trying to reason with him, and he wasn't really being successful. In any case, make a long story short, a while later the farmer contacts the Rav. He says, "I got to tell you, I got to show you something that's beyond this world." So what happened was that, after this mishap, when he threw the animal bechor over the wall, it recurred, and it was unusual that so many mishaps, so many stillborns or whatever. He says it happens, especially by firstborns. They don't survive. They're not strong enough to live. And I had a couple of animals that died. The last little while, a couple of calves, a couple of newborns. And I threw them all over the fence into the ravine. And it was something strange that it would happen so often. And I started thinking to myself, maybe it's because of I wasn't really behaving, with the rabbi. So I decided to go over to the cliff over there and see how my carcasses are doing. And I look over, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Everything was gone. The vultures, they come and they do their thing. Within a short time, not a bone, nothing's left. Except for one. There was one calf intact, untouched. And that was the bechor. That was the one that I threw over first. And I'm like, gasping, I couldn't believe it. Do you mean to say the birds know to keep away from a bechor due to its holiness? Do you mean to say holiness is real? Kedusha is something serious? Torah is legit? It's just like first time in my life that my animals weren't eaten up like in minutes and in hours. And that's why I decided to contact you again. I think I'm going to make a little U-turn here. And he says, I'm going to take this seriously. And he signed the papers and everything. And he actually became religious from this episode, from his dead animal over the fence, which was his message from Hashem. My dear son, I want you back. Okay, so that's the idea of yikaver v'nefteres min habechor. Let's see another piece in the Gemara. Okay, so as we learn, at what point is it considered a leida? when you get most of the animal out. 51%, at that point it's called birthed, Leda, it's a Buktushas Bachar, Itmar. Now comes an interesting discussion. Yotza Shlish. So the calf was born a third. So a third of it came out. And then he, quickly, get the Rav. I got to sign it off to the guy. Umachroi, Leib Gicham, he sold it to the guy. Is it too late? Wait, we'll see. V'chaz of Yotza Shlish. Achar. Then comes the second third. So now we have 66%. A clear majority. But in the middle, he had sold it to a guy. What's the status of this newborn? Is it a Bechor or not? Rav Huna Amar Kaddish, too late. It has Kedusha. Rabbi Amar, no, ain't it Kaddish? It's not Kaddish. He nipped it in the bud, he got it just in time. What's the basis for this machlekes? The question is like this. We know that 51% is considered the majority. It's considered halachically born. There's Leda there. But is it going forward? At the point of 51%, it's considered born going forward, or is it retroactive? Once you hit 51%, that's the end of the process that had begun back at the first percent. It's retroactive. That's the machlekes. Rav Huna Amar Kaddish. In this case, it's Kaddish as well, because he holds Lamafreya Kaddish. It's Kaddish retroactive. What you did in the middle is too late. Once you hit 51%, it's been revealed retroactively. It was Kaddish from the first percent. Just because he sold it to the guy in the middle, it's too late. It wasn't a proper sale. Rabbi Amar says, no, there's no Kedusha, because he holds Mikan Labal Kaddish. The Kedusha happens now, it's activated at 0.51%. And whatever transpired until then was still pre-birth, pre-Kedushas Bechor. And what he had sold, Shapir Zavin, was a proper sale. And this machlekes really connects to another machlekes of similar factors. The Itmar. Yotza Shlish Derech Doif. The Bechor is only Kaddish if it's Petarechem, if it comes out naturally through the womb. Let's say a third of it came out from the side, through a cesarean. It doesn't qualify as Kedushas Bechor. But then the animal made a turnaround and came out naturally. Shnei Shlishei Derech Rechem, the second 2/3 came out naturally through the Rechem. No, same machlekes. Rav Huna Amar Einei Kaddish. In this case, Rav Huna flips it around. He says it's not Kaddish. You know why? Because once you hit 51%, you go retroactive. And retroactive in this case wouldn't work because the first third was not a natural birth. Rabbi Amar, no, Kaddish, it is Kaddish. Why? He explains the Gemara. Rav Huna Amar Einei Kaddish, no Kedusha. Rav Huna Tamei, Rav Huna connects with his opinion, stated a minute ago. The Amar says, L'mafreya Kaddish, Kedusha is retroactive. So once you hit 51%, it's really the culmination of the birth process that had begun at the first point of birth. And the problem is in this case, V'ruba Kama, the first majority, Lese Berechem, was not through the Rechem, because the first third was not in the Rechem. So if you stop at 51%, 33% of that 51 was not a natural birth, so it doesn't work. Rabbi Amar says, no, Kaddish, it is Kaddish. Ignore the first third. It's going forward. Right now, last 2/3 were naturally born, that's all you need. So going forward, it's a birth. Rabbi Amar Kaddish, there is Kedusha. Rabbi follows his Shittas Amar, who says, Mekan Allah Kaddish. Once you have 51% of proper birth, that's what activates the birth. That's what activates the Kedusha. We ignore what happened in the past that wasn't really relevant. And most of this birth happened through the Rechem. Now, why this repetition? It's based on the same factor. Both are needed. Had we only discussed the second case, perhaps I can argue, perhaps it's only over here that Rav Huna says. Sorry, Baha means if you only discuss the first case, where he had sold it to the guy after the first third, perhaps there's room to think, Baha Kamar Rav Huna. It's only in this case Rav Huna says that you go retroactive, because had he had said otherwise, if he would go, going forward, you would end up without Kedushas Bechor. Because then the sale to the guy, which happened right before, would take effect. But how come Rav Huna? It's only in this case Rav Huna says, go back to the beginning. And this is merely the end of the beginning. the end of the Leda that started way back at the first moment. Mishum de Lakula. Because otherwise, if it would go the other way, it would come out as a leniency. It would invalidate the Bechor. But in this last case, where we had a third through the Daifen, 2/3 through the Rechem, to the Chumrah. In this case, if you would go with the other approach, that it's all about going forward, we ignore the past. Delay. The rabbis in this case, if he would go forward, it would bring about Kedusha. Perhaps he would go like Rabbah in this case, to be Machmer, and just to focus on what happened now. Right now you have 51% of proper birth that activates Kedusha. That's what I would think. On the other hand, V'yitma Baha, we turn to the next page, had we only studied the second case, I would say Bahakam Rabbah, it's only in this case that Rabbah says. We ignore the past, we just look at what happened now, going forward. You have the second, 2/3 that were naturally born, that's all that counts. Bahakam Rabbah, perhaps in this case, Rabbah maintains that we go with a forward-looking approach because that generates Kedusha, Abba Baha. However, in the first case of the sale to the guy, perhaps in that case you would agree to Rav Huna's approach that we go back to the beginning as a retroactive process to ignore, to delete, to disregard the sale to the guy, because in that case there's Kedusha, so you would go to Chumrah, Tzricha, that's why we mentioned both cases. To tell us whether it's Lakula, whether it's Lachumrah, whatever it generates, doesn't matter. Rabbah sticks to his position that it's Makan al-Lahaba and Rav Huna to his. Okay, let's see just one more piece, the Mishnah, Tanan. Let's take a look at our Mishnah and see how it fits with this equation. Right? The animal giving birth for the first time. Mishnah says, if he detaches from the limbs of the uber inside the mother and throws it out and gives it to the dogs, he preempts any Kedusha of Bechor because he did it before there was any birth. Now, what happened to the limbs that he chopped off? Where are they? My love, let's assume they're right here. They're accumulating in front of him, to the point that after a while he'll have accumulation of so many limbs which will amount to the majority, the 51% of the unborn animal. He's leaving it right there. Now, if generally you look at it as a retroactive process, look, once he accumulates limb after limb after limb, chops, pulls out, once he hits the 51% mark, retroactively, all of this is really part of the birthing process. You have a Bechor that was born. You have Kedusha. You cover him in burial. The Mishnah should require burial. If in fact we're going with Rav Huna's approach that it's a retroactive process. No, says the Gemara, we're not speaking that his limbs are standing in front of him, waiting to be, counted up. My skin was speaking that he's tossing them away, getting rid of them. They're being consumed as they come out. They're non-existence in order to be tallied up as 51%. He chops and he throws it to the dogs and it disappears. That's why there's no accumulation. That's why there's no birth. Well, says the Gemara, so what are you suggesting? That if he were to chop and leave it and let it collect and accumulate, what would be the halacha you cover? In fact, once it hits 51%, there's a Leda, there's a birth, and there's Kedusha, and you have to bury it. If that would be the case, let's take a look at the Mishnah one more time. Adatan is Seifa. So why does the Mishnah, the next halacha, have to, in looking for a contrasting case, a case where it is Kaddish, has to find a case where, the animal unborn came out mostly, was birthed. Forget about that. It's a rather simple case. Let's look for a more complicated case. Let's just find a distinction within our case. We're just chopping. If he chops and tosses it away, that's one halacha. That's not tallied. That's not going to accumulate. But if he chops and piles it up, then you have a Bechor. Instead of continuing with the case of Yotza, Ruba, you cover, if most of him was born naturally, there's Kvura, but after Ramchera, listen to the die. The Mishnah could have simply found a distinction within the chopper case. But when do we say there's no Bechor when he's chopping and he's feeding it to the dogs right away? Aver, each limb as it comes out. But if he's chopping and he's piling it up, you cover. That accumulates, and that is considered a Leda. Retroactive in the whole thing, all this material is considered Kedushas Bechor. Guess what? That's exactly what the Mishnah means to say. But when do we say there's no Bechor when he's feeding it to the dogs as they come out? There's no accumulation. But otherwise, if they're sitting right here, you're right. It's considered as though the animal was born to the point of 51%. Roiv came out properly, and you have a bukhar with kedusha, then the kvura is required. So whether he came out as a single entity, or whether you chopped him out, either way, once you hit that 50% mark, past that 50% mark, whatever transpired until then is all part and parcel of the same process. It's a continuum. It's a continuous process. It's a Leida experience from beginning to end. And in fact, you have a Bukhar. Okay, let's quickly recap today's daf. We started with 3 shaylos regarding the arm that came out in the Azora. That doesn't really count as within the Mechitza. We can combine the Shechita with 2 simanim regarding Bimatar, the arm from Nevela. And we had an interesting shayla of the Chalav that was 90% Ben Pekua. We learned 2 sources, 2 psukim for the Heter Ben Pekua. And we shifted over to the halacha of the Leida of a Bukhar. As soon as there's Roiv, there's Kedusha. There's a question whether we do a Lamafreya, a retroactive, have that approach, or is it going forward? Machlekes Rabbah and Rav Huna. All the best to you, and Allah.